After a terrible freshman season at Colorado State, I decided to transfer to USF. Unlike at Colorado State, I was actually going to be playing in these games, so I was super happy to be getting into my sophomore season. Our first game was against an FCS school, so I knew it would be a breeze. I just wanted to get into this game and get something going. I even ended up taking back this punt return here for a solid gain. This is something I had never done. It was super fun to try it out, and I was quick to leave my mark on the field as I got my first tackle for loss on the quarterback there. Huge play. First of the season. I knew there was many more to come. We ended up getting a decent victory over the FCS school, although our offense was pretty lackluster as I think they could have put up more points. Our next game was against Michigan State, and I knew we could take them down. It wasn't until the second quarter that I started to get my hands in the game finally. My goal was to once again become the most physical player on the field and get the biggest hits out of any college player out there. My goal by the end of the season was to have players fear me and not even want to come near me with the ball. I was finally starting to show out and prove my skills as I got my first sack of the season. However, no matter how good we did on defense, our offense wasn't that good, and I knew that was going to hold us back this season as a team. USF had a great defense, including me, who transferred onto the team, making it even better. I ended up having a great game, and we just barely got the win over Michigan State. Our defense finally did something our offense couldn't, which was scoring a touchdown. Our next game was up against FAU. I was struggling this game as I couldn't really get anything happening for me. I kept getting pushed to the ground. Finally, though, I read this quarterback's eyes like a book, and I sacked him for 7 yards. I'm genuinely surprised the quarterback stayed in the game after that. I continued to make solid tackles as a safety as well, not just sacks. And I continued to do what I did best and make big hits and kill people to the ground. I continued to make back-to-back great plays, and I knew the season was going way better. However, my one weakness was man coverage, and I absolutely sucked at it as I let up the play every single time. They scored a touchdown there. It was all my fault. I had to make up for that play as we were now losing, but I got a huge tackle for loss on the quarterback right there. I was able to be clutch when my team needed it most. Time was running out, and I didn't want to lose this game, so I had to continue to make back-to-back big plays to get our offense back with the ball. Unfortunately, no matter how good we did as a defensive unit, our offense sucked and couldn't get any points on the board. So we were going to get our first loss of the season, just 7-0. However, I finished this game off with a bang as I timed the snap perfectly and I got my second sack of the game. This was huge for me. Coming off against our first loss, we were now playing Miami, which I knew was going to be a tough matchup for us. I really wanted to pull off this upset though, so I put my all into this game as I got my first huge play of the game, which is a sack. And I couldn't believe it, but we were going to be tied at 0-0 going into the second half. We held Miami to no points. I came out on this play and laid off my signature hit as I hit the quarterback to the ground. I can smell the quarterback option play a mile away, so I don't even know why they tried against me. Our offense finally got some points on the board, so all we had to do now was just clutch up on defense like usual. Unfortunately, Miami made their way down the entire field and scored a touchdown with only 47 seconds left in the game. I thought it was game over, but look at this. Our offense actually scored a touchdown with less than a minute left in the game, and we pulled off the upset 10-7. I couldn't believe it. After just taking down Miami, I knew we could take on Cincinnati. Unfortunately, I started off to a bad start where I missed that tackle. I finally got something going, however, in the second as I laid out a huge hit on the running back for tackle for loss. Our defense continued to carry our entire team as we got another interception, which kept this game 0-0. Thankfully, though, our offense started to actually capitalize off some of our defensive stops, and we were up 14-0 with only 2 minutes left in the game. I didn't really end up doing all that much this game, but I was just happy we were going to get a victory, 2 in a row for us. Our next game was up against Charlotte, and we were starting this down by 7 going into the second half, so we needed to clutch up on defense. I ended up actually forcing a fumble on that last tackle. I could have made a huge tackle here, but I just barely missed his shoes. I finally got some sort of play here though as I stopped the quarterback from scrambling for a first down. We were down and there was less than 2 minutes left in the game, so I was going to do what I could to stop them and give the ball back to our offense. However, despite my extra efforts and numerous tackles, we unfortunately were going to lose this game. This was pretty annoying as it was clearly our offense's fault, and we had just come off wins against Cincinnati and Miami, so this was disappointing. I started off this next game strong with a 4th down stop against Louisville. This next play I ended up laying out a massive hit. I accidentally hit my teammate to the ground as well though. I felt bad. I completely leveled both of them. No matter how many guys came up me, I always stood on my feet and made the huge tackles. Unfortunately, not everything goes my way as I missed a wide open tackle and they ended up getting 36 yards. I was able to make up for that missed tackle on the very next play as I laid out another massive hit. Look how close I was to getting the sack. Unfortunately, I was made a fool of as I got tripped to the ground. Thankfully though, we ended up holding Louisville to only a field goal, so we were still up. And even though I messed up my coverage on this next play, I ended up getting the tackle and making the finish. And on the final play of the half, I sprinted straight at the quarterback and made my biggest sack of the season yet. I was so hyped up after that. What a way to finish that half. I continued to show off my speed as well as I sprinted across half of this field to help make the tackle. I was going for another huge hit here, but I got bounced right off. I was embarrassed after that. That was my first time not laying out a huge hit this game. We ended up bouncing back and getting the win over Louisville, and I had a very good game. Our next game was against number 12 ranked Houston, and we were already down by 7 in the first. My teammate teammates ended up forcing a huge fumble on the quarterback right there as they scooped that up and put our offense in great field position. Unfortunately, like usual, they were only able to get 3 points as they sucked. And it was clear that we were going to be struggling in this game as Houston just got another touchdown on us, making it a 10-point game. Our offense was once again not able to score, but I finally got my first tackle of the game. I had barely put a mark on this game so far as nothing was really coming my way, only one tackle. I finally ended up getting my hands in the play as I helped out on a tackle there. I couldn't believe it though. Our defense stepped up like usual and our offense actually finally took the lead. Unfortunately, Houston ended up making a huge passing play for a touchdown, and this was definitely partly my fault there. I was able to only partly make up for it there as I finally got my first tackle for loss of the game, but it seemed like our defense had just entirely collapsed here as on this run, we all tripped over each other and they ended up taking this all the way down the field and almost into the red zone. That was definitely very embarrassing and it ended up costing us the game as we lost to number 12 Houston, so we had to bounce back as a whole team against Memphis in our next game. And we clearly were as our offense was actually scoring and we ended up getting a defensive scoop and score all the way for a touchdown, bringing this game 21-0. This was a whole team effort. And I finally made a mark on this game as I got my signature tackle for loss on the running back. Unfortunately, Memphis got a crazy catch just before the end of the half, and I was going to do anything to stop them from getting any more points on the board. I wanted a dominant victory. I finally ended up laying out a big hit. Unfortunately, it kind of hurt me as well. However, my number one weakness continued to show as I messed up my coverage once again, and that resulted in a Memphis touchdown. Thankfully, our offense stepped up and we got a pretty good victory. However, these last couple games for me were very lackluster in terms of my performance. Our next game was up against SMU. I ended up getting a huge fourth down stop here on SMU. Like always though, our offense did nothing with the ball, so I took my anger out on this next play. Just look how I got around this blocker and got right to the guy with the ball. That was crazy. My teammate ended up getting a huge interception on the very next play and he took this for a decent return. I continued to insert myself into the plays when I was needed and I ended up getting my second fourth down stop of the game, which was huge for me as that set up our offense to finally score. This next hit right here may be one of the biggest I ever did as I took out 3 other guys including myself. I mean, just look at this replay. That was insane. I was finally getting the breakout game I needed after so long as I got my first sack of the game, and on the very next play I ended up plowing through this guy and tackling him to the ground for another fourth down stop. I was finally back to playing at my top level and it was just play after play for me. I just kept making huge tackles. I was also starting to finally improve my man coverage as well. I was going to do whatever it took to get the shutout as I just barely pushed the guy out of the end zone. Unfortunately, I was not able to shed that block and they ended up getting a touchdown. Thankfully though, there was only a couple seconds left in this game, so we got the victory. Our next game was up against UCF. I knew this was going to be a difficult one. I ended up starting off with a solid fundamental tackle. I continued to put my all into the game and just making the right plays as I got another tackle. Unfortunately, they ended up scoring a rushing touchdown and getting on the board first. And once again, my weakness came out as I messed up my zone coverage. Somehow that counted as a tackle for me though. And on this next play, I just barely stopped the UCF player from getting into the end zone. However, the very next play, they popped one in. Our offense for once actually got us back into this game and we were just down by 4 and I made a huge tackle for loss right there on the running back, my signature play. I continued to use my strength to my advantage. I slammed that guy to the ground. I timed this next snap absolutely perfectly as I got another tackle for loss on the running back. That was an insane play by me. However, that wasn't enough to stop UCF as they got another touchdown on us, which was going to make this hard on our offense. Unfortunately, we ended up losing this game by just 3 points. This was disappointing. Our last game of the season was against Rutgers and I started off with a solid tackle on the quarterback. My zone coverage was also starting to improve as I got a solid tackle on this receiver. Unfortunately, Rutgers found themselves in the red zone, but I thankfully made a stop, stopping him from getting the touchdown. We ended up holding them to only 3 points and I made one of my biggest hits of my career yet as I took out my teammate as well. I felt really bad. My strength was just unmatched. I was too strong for my own body. Our next play was a blitz. Unfortunately, I was unable to get to the quarterback in time, so the Rutgers scored a touchdown. Going into the second half, this was still anybody's game. I ended up tripping on my own shoelaces and falling on my face, embarrassing myself on this next play. It seemed like every hit I laid out was bigger and bigger than the last one as I took out like 8 people there. This one just genuinely looked insane. The game was now tied up at 10-10, so I had to put my all into everything. There was only a minute left. I timed this next snap perfectly as I sacked the quarterback for a massive play right there. Unfortunately, it was not enough. There was only 14 seconds left in the game. However, that caused the game to go into overtime, and in overtime, my teammates caused a fumble and they recovered it, so now all our team had to do was score. However, of course, like usual, I couldn't believe my eyes. My offense couldn't even score a field goal to seal the victory, so it was now up to our defense again. We held Rutgers out to just a field goal and our offense scored 2 field goals, so now all we had to do was get a stop. However, it was my biggest weakness that sealed this game for Rutgers. I screwed up my man coverage once again, and I knew next season I had to prepare myself for this as we lost our final game of the season, and it was my fault. We finished 7-5. I knew next season we could pop off though. I had a very good season though. I had 56 tackles, 54 solo tackles, 15 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks. That was a solid sophomore season for me.